For everyone who is listening, Miss Click, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, hi, my name is Miss Click. You can find me here on YouTube as Miss Click Gaming. I am a variety streamer and YouTube content creator, and I love all things, well, gaming in general, but Nintendo and Zelda in specific a lot more than other things. Anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, hi, how are you? You can find me as Miss Click.
All right, so...
Yes, of course. This is one that I actually see a lot of people talking about, so I thought it'd be kind of cool if we dove in and like I gave my final say on it. But this one is from Live Action Link. He said, I said this a while ago when the new Breath of the Wild 2 trailer looks like it might support my theory. I think that Calamity Ganon is actually Demise, aka Ganon's spirit or origin. And instead of possessing one single person, such as Ganon, which has failed over and over again, he saw his chance to possess an entire army when the ancient Sheikah technology was discovered. I don't believe we ever actually see any physical form of Ganon in Breath of the Wild, just the energy of Demise possessing things. But we know there's always Ganon somewhere. He may have been kept alive somewhere by Demise and used as a physical being to leech power through into the physical world.
Yeah, this one's really interesting. I've heard different thoughts and theories and ideas from people who thought it was Demise, but I've never heard one detailed out like this, to where instead of it just being Demise, it's like Demise trying to like take over through like a variety of different things. I don't know.
Exactly. It's kind of like a hybrid of the theory, I guess the theory of, you know, divine beasts and ancient technology running off of souls or spirits, which could be similar, you know, to the luminous stones or so, and then mixed with, I guess, the incarnate of Demise kind of still somewhat needing a host for the power, you know. But I personally do not think that this would be Demise. I honestly think that if Demise was ever somehow able to come back, I think that that would actually be the end of the cycle. I think that it would start with him, and if he came back, it would end with him. Like, if he was to die again, I think at this point it would probably be that it would never reincarnate ever again, which would be sad. It'd be a cool way to end the series, but I personally don't see that happening, at least just yet.
Yeah, it would be a great way to have a definitive end. But even if they did that, I'm sure Nintendo would do something to where it's like, oh, now he has a son who wants to get revenge. So there's always ideas and ways for them to continue. But with this specifically, what do you think? Because we haven't had you on since Breath of the Wild 2 was announced, I don't believe. So what do you think, personally, the whole body under the castle, where everyone presumes it's under the castle?
Ooh, so I had, like, the whole next day after that, you know, trailer dropped, you know, because I, like, was not able to think the day of, because, you know, just everything, like, your brain, like, what? We weren't ready. I think one of the next theories might touch on it a little bit, but I think I would love, and this is just like a personal thing that I've kind of always wanted, and I think we've talked about it on one of your videos before, so it was kind of like, I gotta like talk with Jesse about this. But I remember we talked about, you know, like a possible thing, like what would be a new direction the series could take, or like a new spin, which I highly doubt, but there are like so many little things that we've seen in this trailer and in Breath of the Wild, the first one, is that could Ganondorf potentially actually somewhat be good?
Yes.
And I would love it, even if he's good in the beginning and then he ends up kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess, kind of like falling into the hatred and incarnate. Like, maybe he actually was considered the hero. We don't know because of the old, I guess, like hieroglyphic, you know, of the actual story. The first time we see it in Breath of the Wild, it doesn't look like Link at all. You know, it's got red hair, it's a bigger stature. Right. Zelda, you know, Zelda's bloodline looks the same, and they're sealing this calamity away essentially. But, you know, it's like, is that Link? And it doesn't necessarily look like it, but you know, the hieroglyphics and even like some of the details looks a lot like the jewelry that we do see on this body that is underneath Hyrule Castle. So part of me is almost like, oh my god, what if this possibly could have been at one point a good Ganondorf, and maybe he had you know, the courage and everything, but then something happened. Maybe he was betrayed. Maybe he became so hateful that he became hateful incarnate. Because, I mean, we don't necessarily know if the person who, you know, obtains the Triforce of Power, you know, if they are always that way from birth. You know, we don't know if Ganondorf was always evil from the beginning. We see him conquest. We see him written on the wall in that cave. They might not be negative necessarily. I don't think I've actually researched too much of the hieroglyphics to see if he's actually like killing things out of just pure evil, but it just looks like it was, you know, like it could be like Tales of a Great Warrior. We really don't know, but it does look like, you know, the evil king. So there's like so many little things, but I would love it if he was good. But knowing the way Nintendo's gonna go, it probably could just end up being to where this is, you know, just you know, another incarnate, which is not bad. I like, if we get to see Ganondorf rehydrated in Breath of the Wild 2, I'm gonna be like, oh my god, I'm gonna be freaking out, because that's like the one thing I think a lot of us really wanted to see in the original Breath of the Wild, you know. And like now it makes sense that they've kind of been like depriving us of it for a while, if it's gonna come, you know, to fruition in this game.
Yeah.
So either that or even just flashbacks, you know, of what he used to look like. So I don't know. I'm really excited, but yeah, it'd be cool if he was good.
I have similar ideas. Holly, who we had on the podcast a couple of days ago, she kept on mentioning rehydrated Ganon and talking about how all of the artwork and stuff, everyone's basically in love with him, kind of pushing Sidon to the side.
No, I love Sidon.
Daniel, though, he isn't a fan of that whole Ganondorf being the original hero type of thing. And I look at it as, I know for some people it is moving too far from like what we consider the normal. Yeah. So with the Zelda series, and especially with Aonuma's interviews and stuff, even leading up to Breath of the Wild, and even starting a bit with Skyward Sword, which is why we got the I would say more of a focus on storytelling with Skyward Sword. And then they made it so that instead of having this huge world to explore, they focused on these isolated areas, but gave more stuff to do in those areas than what would be there in traditional games. And then we had a Link Between Worlds, which changed it up by giving you access to all of the different items from the very beginning, which again is kind of what Breath of the Wild does, where it gives you all of the different runes at the beginning. That way you can just go anywhere, just like A Link Between Worlds did. So I could see them changing the Zelda formula even more to make it sort of having Ganondorf as maybe not necessarily like a 100% righteous hero, but more of an anti-hero. Like how everyone sees like Venom in the Spider-Man comics and stuff, or Punisher or whatever, to where like they're kind of good, but they're still doing a whole lot of bad stuff.
Vigilante type thing, yeah.
Yeah, like everyone has been pointing towards Ganondorf, his speech in Wind Waker, where he gives a speech as if he's trying to do everything right by his people.
Yeah, it's not about how he's always been jealous of the wind, and he just wanted that wind for his own and stuff like that. Yeah, it was pretty touching, but at the same time, it's like, dude, that's not how you go about it.
Yeah, it's like you're still kidnapping little girls. That's that's not.
What the heck, dude?
Yeah, like you could have just like went and talked about it. And Ganondorf's whole thing is he wants to be the ruler of Hyrule, but it seems like Calamity Ganon just wanted to destroy everything.
Right.
He didn't necessarily like care about ruling over. He just, I don't know what he wanted. Like his goals weren't necessarily that well established. He just seemed like he wanted to destroy everything. But Ganondorf, I always use the comparison for Dragon Ball Z for the people that watch it, to where Ganondorf was more like Frieza, to where Frieza would destroy stuff and kill people, but he just wanted everyone to like worship him. He wanted to be the ruler, the king of everyone. Whereas Majin Buu, or Kid Buu, which was the final bad guy in Dragon Ball Z before Super began, he didn't care. He just had fun in destroying everything and causing chaos. And I looked at that as like Majora's Mask wanted to just destroy everything and play tricks on people and torture them, whereas Ganondorf wanted to, like, he would
Actually
torture people. Yeah, but he wanted, his end goal was to be king and just get rid of all the people that did not want him. But in Breath of the Wild, it's like, well, Ganondorf doesn't seem to have any real end goal here. But it would make sense that if he was sealed, like if Calamity Ganon and Ganondorf were separated, like he somehow realized that I've always wanted to be king, but he just realized it, like something has been pushing me to not go about it the right way, like this isn't what I wanted.
Definitely.
And then he somehow finds out about the Curse of Demise, separates himself from it, but then he realizes, oh, I just did something completely horrible. Like now there's nothing holding back this giant evil. So then he has to seal it within himself once again at the end. So it's,
I think that'd be really cool, dude. It makes you like, oh, like I think the thing about it, and I know we'll move on, but I think the thing about it is like no matter what, this next story is gonna be essentially kind of like revealing the skeletons of the closet of the you know Hyrule royal family, the Hylian family, in the sense of like, I feel like this is going to be like kind of a mystery of why, or maybe we learn it like right in the beginning. Maybe it's not even like, and it's going to be a mystery in the rest of the game, but like just figuring out why, like who the heck, you know, like sealed it. And then why weren't we told about it? Like, why was this so hush hush? And then like, who really knew about it in the big scheme of things? Because like maybe did like the monks know in the shrines, like were they aware of it? They've been here, you know, for how long at this point? Like who knew from that time that isn't saying anything, you know, of anybody that might exist still?
It could even be like the king of Hyrule, like Zelda's father. Because
it could, like he does stay dormant beneath the ground.
Yeah, if we go back to the main console game before Breath of the Wild, Skyward Sword, there's the whole thing to where he is really the only person who knows about the land below, which is Zelda's father. He's not necessarily king at the time. He's like principal of the school or headmaster or whatever. But he knows about like Hylia and the goddess sword and where it's hidden and everything. And he knows about all this stuff, but he's not telling anyone. The information that he knows in Skyward Sword isn't necessarily like bad stuff, but if you took it a step further in Breath of the Wild, to where like at the very beginning he's just like, oh, I'm just an old man eating an apple next to a campfire, and then a few hours into the game he gives you this horrendous tragic backstory, and it's like, okay, well, you could have told me that like when I first woke up, instead of like making me confused about what's going on for 6 hours. But anyways, moving on to our second theory, which also kind of has to do with Skyward Sword. This one comes from Hero of Mine, who says, I don't really have much of a theory, but instead have a question that I would like you to answer with your own theory. The time travel in Skyward Sword confuses me. We are shown that what we do in the past will directly affect the present, even planting a tree, which is one of the side quests that they have in Skyward Sword. Can you explain the ending of the game, killing Demise in the present, then traveling back in time to stop him in the past? And since we have past and present Demise, should we also have two versions of Girahim? So since you are the queen of Skyward Sword, what are your what are your personal thoughts on all of this?
It's actually a good question, because I think it's one that we've also I personally have wanted to kind of, I guess, learn more of the specifics on, and there's not like too many clues or hints as to what would have you know happened. My thing is I would assume, you know, so spoilers for Skyward Sword if you haven't played it at this point, what are you doing? But okay, so in the actual first just full out game, right, if no time travel was really involved after, you know, we fight Demise, right? So we fight him, we kill him, you know, he's absorbed into the sword. And then, you know, 𝐲𝐿, well, that's kind of how it would have gone. But we had to do that because we had to go back in the past. So sorry, I'm confusing everybody. So 𝐲𝐿 goes back, takes Zelda, right? And he's like doing like the weird dance ritual and everything. So essentially the question I'm assuming is asking, like, why didn't 𝐲𝐿 run into 𝐲𝐿, right? If he's back in the past, why is 𝐲𝐿 not in the sealed grounds? I honestly think that something must have happened, like from the battle and everything, to where he didn't have access to 𝐲𝐿 or have access to his sword. That's the only thing I can really think of, because maybe, you know, something happened and he was weak and then he got sealed into the ground. We don't know exactly if the sealed grounds was where the entire battle took place. Maybe it could have just been an oversight by the developers, because I would assume, like, when we think of the Master Sword, we never see two Master Swords, or, you know, like, we see them ever overlap, but Link does carry, you know, the Goddess Sword through the same temple, you know, with Zelda, like, back behind the door, and, like, we don't know it's her the whole time.
Right.
If that makes sense. So it's like there are a lot of, like, overlaps and things that have been, like, kind of clarified, but that's one of the main things that I don't think I've fully wrapped my mind around, in the sense that, like, anything could have happened. I don't think there's enough specifics for us to know, like, if maybe 𝐲𝐿, when his master was killed, like, maybe he went off and he was grieving or something, or maybe he was, you know, somewhere else. Maybe there was another pedestal or something, like, that he was, I don't know. It could have been anything. So
yeah.
It's a very kind of open-ended thing that hopefully at one point, if they ever did get this question, they would probably be able to answer, or give at least, you know, an ambiguous, open-ended kind of little thing that they normally do. Like, oh, I don't know. Maybe this, maybe that. You decide. And you're like, wow, just give me something more specific. But
yeah,
I don't know.
It's kind of sad that Skyward Sword, well, in a way it's not sad, because in the end we got Breath of the Wild, which is amazing on its own. But if Skyward Sword would have done better, I remember there were interviews that Aonuma and Miyamoto had directly after the release of Skyward Sword, to where they said that they spent so much time perfecting the motion control in Skyward Sword, which is one of the reasons why that game was delayed. And they basically said they spent so much time working on the motion control, there was so much more that they wanted to do with it that they weren't able to do in Skyward Sword. So they can't imagine not using the motion controls in a new game, which made me think, well, the logical thing to do if they want to reuse motion control is to do Skyward Sword 2. And then that way, because you basically had the perfect story, just like started shortly after showing Link and Zelda discovering the overworld that was in the world below, because there could have been so much more there that we didn't see. And then but it seems like they just, like, kind of skipped that, and then the cliffhanger they had is just going to remain a big cliffhanger, sadly.
Well, it's kind of sweet, and I guess it, like, leaves it off at a point where it's like you could actually make a whole separate game if you wanted to, you know, after the establishment, after Skyward Sword, and then before the actual reigning of Ocarina of Time. You know, like, there's so much. I know there's, like, Minish Cap and stuff in between and whatnot, but there's still so much they could play around with. And it's crazy to me to think that, you know, when they say stuff like that, like, what else they could have added other than, you know, probably more exploration or something. But, like, the story was already so good. It's like, to me, hearing things like that, it's like, oh my gosh, what if motion controls had already been perfected at the time? You know, like, what else would they have added?
Yeah.
So it's really cool to think, you know, if something ever like that does come around, or maybe HD, maybe Skyward Sword HD comes around, and I would love that.
Yeah, especially
maybe they add stuff.
Yeah, especially if even if they don't add anything, which I would like for them to add stuff, but if they released a companion book to go along with it, kind of like what we've seen with Breath of the Wild, which Skyward Sword had Hyrule Historia that released alongside it, but that was more of a collection of all Zelda games, not just Skyward Sword. So it would be great to see like an encyclopedia or something all about Skyward Sword, giving all of the different
I would
details.
love that, because the guide gives a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah.
Remember that pretty sky blue book.
All right. So what is your next theory here?
Okay, so the next one I believe is by, and it's somewhat similar to the Ganon theory, I think that they were saying, but it adds a new element in, and it was from Zen Waters. Said, my theory is that Calamity Ganon has always been the malice pouring out of Ganondorf's corpse. We know that thousands of years ago, Zelda and Link, or so we think, fought and sealed Calamity Ganon, but could that have been the manifestation of his hatred just as it was at the end of Breath of the Wild? So essentially, could that also have not been, the full-out body? Princess and the hero still the princess and the hero would have still had to defeat it, but it wasn't what was imprisoned under the ground. The Sheikah could have worked with the Zonai in an attempt to seal Ganondorf away, but his hatred poured out in protest to their actions and formed the Calamity. That's why it's never just Ganon or Ganondorf, because it isn't.
It's interesting.
So that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think it's saying it's kind of like a repeat. So like both times they're fighting the malice itself, not the actual, I guess, hydrated form of Ganon.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to think about, because it's like, it does look like a similar form in, the hieroglyphics and everything. It does kind of have like that very like swirly, spinning, almost, like dragon looking form. But again, could that have been, flat out just Beast Ganon?
Yeah.
Taking on a different form or something?
Yeah, and we seen like the different blights, which there was like Calamity everywhere, or whatever they want, like the ooze stuff with the eyeballs, the malice. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So there was the malice everywhere, but then there was like the main Ganon that was in the castle, or not the main Ganon, but the main form of the Calamity Ganon.
Right.
And then the divine beasts had their own weird forms of Calamity Ganon with the different blights, which kind of seemed like it was literally just like his hatred manifested, or whatever, in a physical form. I can't speak, sorry.
You're fine.
Yeah, so it was like the hatred manifested in its own physical form, and that's why it's there. So, yeah, I like this. It kind of makes it seem like at the end of Breath of the Wild that when you defeat the Calamity, you aren't really defeating it. You're kind of like sending it. Yeah, it's like
you're just putting a little Band-Aid on it,
Yeah. Like making it kind of retreat back inside the physical form of Ganondorf or something. I don't know. Like maybe that's what it was. Like there was that cocoon that was in Breath of the Wild, that like the whole game there's just like the cocoon thing that's hanging there with all the Calamity. So like maybe the Calamity that's oozing out of the physical body of Ganondorf is trying to, like, all of it is slowly trying to make its way to the cocoon so it can be fully restored. And since you defeated it, like, maybe that was just like 10% or half of whatever the Calamity was, and the rest of it is still trying to ooze out of
it's so weird to think about, dude.
Yeah, it makes me, every time I say ooze, it makes me think of the old Ninja Turtle movie, Secret of the Ooze.
The ooze, yeah, for real. Well, it's so interesting because this theory includes, the Zonai, which was one of the most overlooked aspects of the first game, because it's just, kind of there. And I guess because many of us never thought necessarily that we would get an actual sequel, maybe just like a recycle of the same assets and I guess graphics and stuff. I don't think we necessarily focused on these might actually play a part in something. So I think it would be cool to actually see if the Zonai do make a return, or at least, like a revisit to what they possibly could have had into the history of Hyrule as we know it today. So it's really cool to see all these other theories come out by other creators as well about the Zonai. in the sense of we really don't know much about them at all. Like, we just see like these giant owls or whatever around, you know, and we see the spiral and everything, and how it kind of reminds you of like the Kokiri Emerald almost. It's like, are we going to see a part in this? And is this what's sealing him? Is that the green? Is that, you know, I don't know. It's so many different things, dude. And it's exciting to think about it. Oh,
yeah. All right. I have something that I could add to that, but I kind of like want to make my own video on it.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Which there was also something, I'll cut it out of the video, but there was something that from Key of Time, who's actually a Patreon supporter, who has a very short and simple thing here. They say, every 100 years, a male is born into the Gerudo tribe. Link has been asleep for 100 years. And never once have I really seen any male Gerudo, except maybe the one claiming to be, but the Gerudo still won't let any males in. Thoughts? I put very short, but I think this theory or question would be, is Link or the male Gerudo an actual Gerudo? The only thing that I can think of with Link possibly being a Gerudo would be in Twilight Princess, because everyone seems to love the theory, including myself, of Link and Malon from Ocarina of Time being like that, being the one that Link fell in love with and started a family.
Had kids and stuff,
yeah, because Malon worked on the ranch, and then Link in Twilight Princess is a ranch hand. And then there's a second theory that a lot of people like to believe about Malon possibly being part Gerudo because of her hair, and when you wear the Gerudo mask in Ocarina of Time and you speak to her father, he mentions that you resemble Malon's mother. So,
true.
If you put those two theories together, that Malon is part Gerudo, and that Malon is the one who Link marries, then that would mean that, yes, in Twilight Princess, Link is, like, maybe 10% Gerudo or whatever.
I've never actually heard that theory, but it makes sense if you kind of break it down like that.
Yeah. But with Link in Breath of the Wild being Gerudo, I don't know. With the guy who claims to be Gerudo in Breath of the Wild, that is like wearing all the outfit and everything they have to get from him, he could be, but it could just be the fact that in Breath of the Wild, like, Urbosa has that statement at the end about how they, like, now they hate Ganondorf or whatever. So
because he had once adopted the form of Gerudo.
So,
but they haven't. They talked. Did they specify? I don't remember in the actual script at this point. Did they ever state that they haven't had a male?
No, they didn't. It's
just kind of
say
implied
that.
A little bit.
My thought was, since now they hate the idea of having a king that could possibly turn out to be like Ganondorf, that causes a bunch of trouble, that whenever a king is born, instead of letting him take control of the Gerudo automatically, maybe they went like full feminist, to whereas before, like, you could say they were like sort of feminist, but at the end of the day they still worshipped and listened to whatever the king told them. So, like, if they're listening to everything and doing every single thing that their king is telling them to do, then, like, they're not, like, super feminist. Like, they have pride, but they're still, like, literally looking up to this man that's born every 100 years as if he's a god.
I honestly think they haven't had it since Ganondorf, because Ganondorf's technically still alive. Why else would there be a heartbeat in the trailer? Yeah,
possibly.
You know? He's technically been like in a state of comatose this entire time. Like, he looks really gross, but I think honestly that they haven't had a king born. Like, for me personally. And, you know, obviously that's, you know, I think that's why they emphasize the big deal on the Gerudo women going out to find a vo. You know, to go out to finding that, you know, their mate, I guess you should say. I think that's probably why they emphasize this so much, because it's like, well, where is your king been? You know, he's not like here to help make more Gerudo. how do you make more Gerudo? And so I think that's why they like made it a big deal of them going out and finding someone to marry, you know, like the several different quests you can do. So
yeah, my idea was that they just ended up realizing that maybe following a male wasn't good for them since it led to so much bad stuff before. So now if a male is born, they just like pass it on to some other family in Hyrule, which is why there's the guy there that's like, he believes he's Gerudo. So like maybe he was raised being told that he was Gerudo, but they just kicked him out because he was a female. So
maybe
that was just my idea. And then I don't know, but if you think about how big all of the female Gerudo are in Breath of the Wild compared to Ocarina of Time, how they're all like 10 feet tall now and like super muscular.
Yeah,
Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time was already super tall and super muscular, so he would be like 12 feet tall in Breath of the Wild if he was real.
Yeah.
Because, anyways. I believe we're at the last theory. So what is your final one?
Okay, the last one I think is a little less intense or, you know, super I don't know, like lore based. This is a little bit cuter. I actually liked this as someone brought it up.
All right.
Just because I was going through the beginning of Breath of the Wild again, like finally starting to play it again myself for a little bit because I streamed it, so I didn't get really in time to enjoy it as slowly. And this one is like, it's by Peter Ganderson. I had a small theory I wanted to pose. I've been thinking about it since I started playing Breath of the Wild about 2 years ago. When you begin the game, you start in the Shrine of Resurrection, and you find out from King Rome that you were the chosen knight. You get small details throughout the game telling you about your past, but it's never explained where Link lived before the Calamity. Every other game starts where you grew up, such as Skyloft, Outset, Ordon, Kokiri, etc. Link obviously wasn't born in the Shrine of Resurrection. My theory is that he grew up in Castletown or at the castle because many characters recall stories of a very young Link to where, you know, he was 3 or 4 deflecting Guardian Blasts and going to Zora's domain and trained to be a knight. So even if he was born elsewhere, he lived with the royal family from a very young age. But the theory I'm posing for the channel is about the house in Hateno. When you arrive in the village, you're told that they have been hired to tear it down because the former residents left the house over 100 years ago. I think it doesn't make sense that this is originally Link's house given his age. I did have a different idea. Bolson Construction tells you that the owner left to go serve Hyrule, and several NPCs and memories mention Link's father being a knight. My guess is that before Breath of the Wild, Link was born, his dad was a knight for the royal family, and he decided to retire or whatever to Hateno and bought the house so he could have a wife and a child and such. But with the prophecy and fear that the Calamity was returning, he was called back to his knighthood duties and had to abandon his house. I'm guessing that Link's father then died in the Calamity or something and left the house abandoned. So it's kind of like, I think you buy back your dad's house in Breath of the Wild. And I think he just goes on to compliment how much he loves your videos and stuff, which is really, really sweet.
Thank you.
But I think it's so cute to think about that possibly it being Link's dad's house, you know, because you hear about, you know, Link's father being a knight. That's true. We don't really get any specification. And yeah, we hear about, you know, Mipha's journals and stuff like that. But I just thought it was really cute just to think about, like, the house has been abandoned for a long time at this point, and they don't kind of really know what happened, you know, to the owners and everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, what if you did buy back your own family house? Like, wouldn't that be kind of cute to think about?
Yeah, I like that. I think, doesn't the books try to explain that it, like, the house did once belong to Link, and then
I don't know. I don't even have all the books, to be honest. Okay. I don't have a couple of them. But if they are in the book, then that would just confirm this theory.
Yeah. So that's what maybe I'm just imagining it because everyone just talks about the theory itself of it already being Link's house. But yeah, if it is that it's like not necessarily Link's house, but his family's house, like his dad's house, then that would, I would like that. I would actually like that more than it just being Link's house. I would like the idea of it being his father's, because then it has more sentimental value. Otherwise, it's just him kind of living there, since he probably spent most of his time with Zelda,
right,
or at the castle. So, but I like that. It kind of makes it like a bit sadder, but also happier at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that's all of the theories. Do you have a favorite here out of this bunch?
I think maybe the first one that we went to, which is perhaps, did they ever really fight the true Ganondorf the first time around?
Yeah.
Or was he already sealed to the ground by at that point?
I would go with that one, or the one that we just did, because it is such a bittersweet theory.
The house.
Yeah. So everyone, comment below. Let us know which was your favorite, which you would like to see move on to our next video. And Miss Click, thank you so much for joining us. What can people expect if they tune into your own YouTube channel or your Twitch?
So I stream every day on Twitch. So if you're more than ready to come and chat about all things Nintendo and or Zelda theories or just speculation or throw questions at me, you can find me at @MissClick_live on Twitch. However, my YouTube channel will start to be spitting out more Zelda content the closer we get. I am super excited for it. And obviously there's so many speculations and theories running around. So hopefully I'll be able to come in and kind of throw my 2 cents in on maybe some theories that, I have that we haven't got to talk about today, or even just new ones as time approaches, or who knows, Nintendo might drop another trailer and we're not ready for it and we get a whole bunch of new things too. So yeah, you can find me again on YouTube at Miss Click Gaming, and I'll see you on the flip side.
All right, and with that, everyone, thank you for watching, and please go check out Miss Click stuff. She has some reactions and a bunch of other cool Zelda and Nintendo videos as well, so please go check her out.
Hey everyone, it's me again, 𝐅𝐼𝐬𝐢𝐼𝐬𝐢. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. And you know what? If you're a fan of videos like this, you should totally subscribe and give this video a like, and comment below to let us know what type of videos you would like to see us create in the future. And if you would really like to support all of us here at the GameOverJesse channel, please consider purchasing a GameOverJesse t-shirt or becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where you can receive many rewards, such as getting shoutouts, having any topic or theory that you select discussed on the podcast or made into its own video, having your question answered, joining on as a guest on the podcast, and playing with us during our Twitch live streams at twitch.tv/GameOverJesse, and much, much more.